Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. And if you don't believe me, ask Con, ask Todd. They'll tell you it's true. With that said, chat's open. We depend on chat to direct us, make us as relevant as we can, and create so many valuable takeaways that you can actually put to use and justify your time, effort, and thought today. It's B2B live stream strategy event. The umbrella was monetized, but I broke it down even further to how do you justify the return on your time and investment doing things like live streaming, doing things like LinkedIn. And, we're open to comments that suggest what you're doing, what you're thinking. But in the meantime, my pleasure and honor to introduce our two guests. We've got Todd DeWitt, who's been here a few times, always brings more than he takes away. And then we've got Con, who's been a regular 4 Fridays in a row. There is something to consistency, and I think that's the key to everything we're talking about is it's a long haul. It's one step at a time. So Todd, since you're the returning guest, why don't you share a little bit of what's new with Todd and a little context for not everybody who knows you that well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd. So I'm in career number 3. First time out, I was in big box consulting, did that for a few years, found my calling, at least my first one, went and got a PhD and became a professor for a decade. I did a PhD, then a postdoc, then 10 years as a professor. And then I found another calling, which is where I am now. And I write books, I make courses, I give speeches. That's pretty much what I do. LinkedIn is my favorite online home for sure, which is why I'm excited to talk about LinkedIn with these gentlemen today. To be honest, I'm not overplaying my hand here. They've kind of changed my life over the last 15 years. So it's real fun to be here and talk about that.
Well, it's great to have you. And Con, I know you're in the swing of things with your new book and promoting it. Be great to catch up to see what the latest news is.
There it is, buddy.
Yeah. And, that's one thing I love about Todd is he's just ahead of a lot of stuff, and it's nice to be with people that are already moving forward, but see the forward. Con, bring us up to date.
How do you not want to invite someone like Todd to your party when he is so giving? And that's the thing. You want to offer him a spot at the table, but he not only brings his own chair, he brings the best part of the meal. So how do you not invite him to the table? So yes, thank you very much, Don, Todd. It's great to be here with you today. Indeed, we released our new book, The Engagement Blueprint. We've talked about it over the last few weeks. And for anybody that wants to go back and look at the episodes, there's plenty of great information there. The thing to remember is that with the help of our friends, with the help of LinkedIn, with the help of a lot of work together, we managed to get it to the bestseller list, #1 in a few different categories on Amazon. And that will help propel it and get it into the right hands. Because at the end of the day, for all of us here, it's about how do we get the right message into the right hands so people can move forward and progress and we can offer the value and quality that they want. That's what I've been doing over the last 3 decades, whether that's through conducting workshops, whether that's through coaching groups or individuals, executives, whether that's through tailored events and speaking programs, or whether that's through helping companies make sure that their business plans and their people plans are aligned to get the max benefit from their investment in their people. That's what we do. And we add value, all 3 of us here. We could almost call ourselves Men in Black here at the way that we're going.
It wasn't even planned. So that's great. It's always nice to be launching something after finishing something because you're really into the doing and the seeing and the response versus the anticipation, preparation, concern, blah, 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 blah. And, I believe continuous action through continuous learning of every action separates you from the people who are kind of stuck or comfortable. Maybe they're not stuck, but they're not moving forward.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn, the beauty of it is there's 1 billion people registered. And even if you break it down, and we've done it before, to a few million, how many people are doing it this way? And not just live streaming, but putting people together who need and should be together just for themselves. and everything else is collateral and incremental benefit, right? And I think that's where you get your brand known, is because of the value you continue to bring, but being the person who's on the screen versus the person who's posting. If you just distilled and said, how many hours do you spend doing your posting, commenting, liking, connecting, all that stuff? It could be significant. Let's even say 10 hours a week. What if you put 10 hours into broadcasting where no one else is, and doing it in a way that no one else does or even understands how to do?
Yeah.
Eventually, the wave will carry you, I would think, especially if you're out there inviting and doing that. So, kind of tying it into both elements, I know, Todd, you've had tremendous experience writing books and publishing books. And, you've been where Con is. So what does Con have to look forward to next?
Well, I'm right now where he is. I'm not quite 1 year into promoting my latest as well. So I feel you. What does he have to look forward to? This is a whole nother topic. Being a creative, whether you're in business or not, being a creative is you have to be in love with the creation process and sharing and finding some people that you can help, because it's not easy to create and it's not easy to find your audience. And there's always going to be people who don't understand the genius of the thing that you just did. And as long as you can make peace with that, then it's okay, because the answer to your question, what's coming? More of that. For example, I've got a big tribe on LinkedIn. I'm approaching 100,000 followers, and I get 100, 200 new ones on the newsletter I put out each week. And that makes me very, very happy, very lucky. I get to find this group of people and offer them things they enjoy. But I mean, a lot of people go, "Oh, you're so successful on LinkedIn." Yeah, I still have people who don't like what I do. I mean, 3 weeks ago, something like that, I did a post and someone read it, and that person genuinely believed I was value signaling or something else that they found disgusting. Even though I think I'm a positive contributor to people's lives, this person did not enjoy what I did and had real problems with it and posted about it. And I had to deal with that. And I took that feedback. My point is, good for you, Con. I like what you did. I'm going to post about the book later. And it makes me happy when I meet other creators. And we're never going to please everyone. And that's okay. So good luck continuing to find the people that need this book.
Thank you.
That's terrific, Con.
No, and I would agree with Todd, because at the end of the day, if we try to create something that we feel is for everybody, it probably is for nobody, because it doesn't speak to them. We are trying to find our tribe, trying to find the people that need to hear a particular message at a particular time. That's the thing that we need to remember. With, what is it, 1 billion people, Don, you said earlier, that are on LinkedIn? You're not going to make everybody happy. Let's face it. I mean, and you're not going to put something out there that everybody's going to agree with. It's in our human nature, and it's not our intent. Our intent is to help solve a particular problem for a particular audience. That's why we do what we do. And hopefully we can get it into enough of those people's hands that it will make a difference for them. That's how we move the needle. And the beautiful thing is that we can sit here and support each other. The three of us have very different goals, yet we can sit here and support each other, and all three of us can be successful. And we can help each other be successful, because for each one of us, that goal is slightly different.
I got to tell you, Con, that's actually the unique thing for me about LinkedIn, because social media, I'm not going to just make simple statements here, but sometimes I just find it as horrible as it is awesome. And in LinkedIn, while imperfect, is spectacular, because most people have the attitude you just expressed. They don't come on here looking to be a troll. They exist, but they're rare compared to any other platform. Yeah. Most people are genuinely looking to share something of value and to give props to others who are doing the same thing. It's a much more positive vibe that makes it so much easier to come back time and again.
Well, the points you both make are very valuable, but everything is based on your foundation, and most people are coming from where they were to where they want to go. And what that says is just Todd's comment that I'm going to share your book or post or article with my group, that's 100,000 people that one person connected you to as a validation, not as a referral, right? It's not like go hire Khan. It's like, here's Khan's book. I like it, right? And those are the things that you can build efficiency, because you can go one-on-one or you can go one towards 10,000. And what you see on the sidebar are influencers. You know, Omar, who's here, and I recognize him, he's just great. His show is going to be Sunday. Actually, he's going to have Harvey Tuck on this Sunday into his, he's got 2 shows. Who are you? And then they ask you questions about yourself and you see if you can, whatever. But anyways, it's pretty cool. And then he does a kids show, Zoom Party, which takes off of Jeopardy, which my grandson was on and won. Thank you very much, Mark. But he has a great community. And the idea is, when you're talking to 1 billion people, you only need to talk to 20 who have, you know, that network that can cover a lot of it in short time, easy effort. But you know what it is? It's coordination. Most people are doing things by accident instead of plan. We put together the collaboration group. Every other Thursday, everybody who has a show or working on getting a show gets to say, hey, here's what I learned, here's what I did. And everybody gets a piece or leaves a piece. And then you get 7 times the knowledge share. And that's how you advance. You know, it's doing what others can't or won't do that will continue to take you further, but also give you a defensive position, because, you know, once you conquered this, once you learn this, someone else is going to have to learn and conquer it to get over that hump, right? So why not run as fast, but get as much open field as you can? And that's through networking within networking. Not everything is equal. We might have 1 billion people, and just because of geography, you could say 700 million won't work for me, right? If you're just a North American English-oriented individual. But within that, the winners are the ones who continue to change. Because the other thing is, LinkedIn and live streaming is a dynamic platform. It's changing all the time with new capabilities, like things like Opus to repurpose content, to create all kinds of playlists from what you have. And my feeling is don't do more, but do better faster with people who are doing better faster. It's a 2-step process. Todd, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like that. Less is more. I was thinking about parenting. I always think about parenting. I have 2 kids and a granddaughter that lives with me, so I think about it a lot. The research on that, as you recall, prior career, I was a card-carrying dork, and I think about research a lot. And parenting, turns out that it's not the quantity of time, it's the quality of time that determines the productivity, the bond, the love between parent and child. That tends to be a finding. And I think it's true on LinkedIn as well. People are out there sometimes just going crazy with volume, which actually I admire. I used to be more into content volume, and now I'm into quality. Quality matters. And I'd like to refine your comment on having quality by saying, don't be like everyone else. So when I think about how you get successful on LinkedIn, you can start by doing whatever comes to mind because you're not a pro yet. Great. But as you develop, you've got to find a voice that is unique. It sounds so obvious, so simple. It's powerful. You might address similar topics to many other people. That's inevitable. I know I do. But if you do so, I'd like to, the professional speaker in me's coming out. Forgive me, gentlemen. But there's two things there. One is your delivery. That can show some wonderful energy. We have muscles in our face for a reason, people. And number 2, the actual message itself shouldn't sound the same as others who address these topics. So it really is more quality that starts to build people following you, not just a massive pile of posts.
Yeah, well, I think what happens, and I've seen it, I've been posting every day for 7 years. I've done 700 live streams in 2 years. And people settle for small things and small people along the way, and they get, and that's who they're with. That's the fishbowl they're swimming in. But if you've been around and you've operated at high levels with high level people, you know what you're looking for, and you don't need much. And I think the point Todd and Con make is not only are we good for each other right now, we need each other because we all have a piece of the puzzle that we paid for, but is easily shareable and costs nothing. And actually, what I found, the more you promote someone else, the better your brand looks, right? The unselfish, the generous, the ones who say, hey, I don't care if my 15 minutes sells a book today or whatever, but I'm going to get into something that makes me better, right? Because some people get on a show because the show itself is worth being on a show and practicing your skill set. But it's also about how much sharper am I going to be because of this combination. So it's really not a show, it's who's on it, what's the format, what's the audience, what's my takeaway. And the key is, how do you win at the primary level? Like, hey, this was a great experience. My attitude is enhanced. I've kind of come across a couple opportunities, or I put in a couple pieces of the puzzle, but then, hey, I also had the opportunity to share with others and provide value for them. And then who knows where this ripples out to. And I think when you're inside of something extremely important, if you allow it to be important, and you don't shortchange yourself by just, getting the price of admission back. Because I think that's the thing, is this is something that LinkedIn is a tailwind if you get on it the right way and ride it the right way.
Well,
And
speaking of which, there is a right way, Don. I'm curious about both of you with your experience with newsletters, because different ways to post. We're doing a live right now, which is awesome. I'm curious about the newsletter. I resisted, this is my summary, and then I want to hear from you. I resisted doing that because, now I'm on the hook for doing it on a regular basis because that's the expectation, etc. I finally decided to do that, and I've loved doing that. I think I've got like 30,000 people or something that read it every other week, which is great. And I'm so happy I do it because it's a dedicated group who might not see every post you put, but when you send them the newsletter, it hits their inbox, unlike your posts. And that's a special connection. It's hard to get sometimes through LinkedIn. Have one or both of you experimented with newsletters?
I am like so driven by newsletters. Next to live stream, it's newsletters. And I have done a daily newsletter for 10 months.
Wow.
I've got, I think, 18,000, and I've only got 37 followers. So as a percentage, but here's what I learned is about 2 months ago, LinkedIn allows you to have 5 newsletters. And you could really make out, Todd, and here's why. Because you can niche your newsletter. So I have my daily, and it is just LinkedIn live strategy events because there's 5 days a week, and that's the newsletter, right? So then I took one of the days and made it a new newsletter. Within 4 days, I had 6,000 subscribers. The second newsletter, and here's why. LinkedIn gives you a free ride on your introduction. So in other words, as soon as you post your second newsletter, it presents it to your 100,000 and invites them to join. So you'll pick up 18 or 20,000 or whatever number relative to your other number, but it's going to be niched and specific to the target and the audience. And I make that a weekly because, if you're talking about a course, well, that's the newsletter every week, and it's what is going on with the course or the book. And I'm still on my second one and it's growing. I'm getting 350 new subscribers on my second one. I'm only getting 90 on my first one with the big number, because it actually is starting to reach a different audience, which is more specific. So your newsletter, I'm sure, is just your newsletter. I mean, it's broad and it is what it is. But again, that's where I see people coming into what I'm doing with my collaboration group, with my training, to say, hey, why don't we just cover your newsletter strategy and see how we can grow it, right?
I had no idea you could do multiple. That's interesting. I'm definitely going to have to consider that.
Yeah, and that's what we should be talking about is, again, taking what you have, getting more out of it, and then reaching more specific audiences. Because when I started my newsletter, I just thought, well, it's my newsletter. Whatever I throw in is going to be the newsletter. Now, when you start seeing who's responding, that gives you an indication. Maybe that's the niche, my new newsletter. And eventually you get 5 of them going. So you'll go from, let's say you got 30,000 subscribers, you'll end up with 38. And if you did another one, 6, and then they'll all be growing. But the point is, if you were to go to 4 more, you're going to go from 30,000 to 120,000. And there's going to be some overlap, but it doesn't matter. That was just a way of now creating a daily one once a week, or a weekly one 5 times, if one went that way, with 5 different subjects, growing all at the same time. So yeah, there's ways of synchronizing, synergizing, integrating, leveraging the pieces together. So Con, I know you've been sitting patiently. What's your thoughts at this point on newsletters?
Well, it's been fascinating because I've enjoyed sitting back and listening to both of you and learning from both of you, because you've got a lot more experience in this arena than I do. I have my own email list and my own newsletter that I run, but I'm exploring the option of actually tapping into the space here, the platform, and being able to reach an audience that's built into this right now. So that is part of what I'm looking at. And through our conversations, through our collaboration meetings and everything, Don, you know that we've had members of our teams that have had tremendous success and are growing and aspiring to be where you and with Todd are. And at this point, that's a big deal. I mean, it's a great way for us to be able to reach that, because I want to touch on a couple of things. One, you know, being a big fan of Todd's work and understanding like concepts like show your ink and having that authentic voice, which is one of, if you haven't seen it, one of Todd's really amazing keynotes, and listening into him and being proud of your authenticity, being able to show who you truly are, your colors, what you believe in. Because let's face it, people have a built-in mechanism. It's a bullshit meter, and they can smell when somebody is not authentic, and they know it. And so when you are out here and you have so many different options on the platform, when you can subscribe to any newsletter out here, any of a million of them, why subscribe to somebody who you don't believe in? Subscribe to somebody who has an authentic voice, like Todd, like you, and being able to kind of have that, because that's how you're going to engage with your audience. That's how you're going to find your tribe, because it's the people that are attracted to that beacon, which is your message. And so being able to put that out there, it's important. But that also brings me to another question. It's the chicken or the egg. Do you build your audience through your newsletters, or do you have an audience that now you are compounding the value that you're offering to that audience through your newsletters? Because it is a little piece of you every time you put that out there. So the question is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So if we were making a recommendation to those listening to us out there, what should they do? Should they start a newsletter when they don't have an audience and hopefully it builds? Or once they have an audience, do they hit them up with a newsletter to add additional value?
Well, I think what happens is you cover the superficial first, right? Is I'm going to do a newsletter, I'm going to share what I'm doing, and that's my newsletter. Mm-hmm. But unless you learn more about newsletters, and unless you learn about LinkedIn and what they do and what they don't do and what you can do, you're leaving too much on the table. I mean, the only way I knew about this 5 thing is I watched these other videos of people who are experts at newsletter. But before I turn it over to Todd, here's another thing that I learned. Again, break down the numbers. 1 billion people on there, 2 million people create content. There's only 36,000 newsletters. And then break those down to people who do it once a year, people who do it awful, people have no audience. To your question, if you don't have connections, your newsletter is not going to get any reach, right? So if you have 800 connections, you'll get 150 and you'll grow by 3 a day. So do you build connections so you can now expand your newsletter? Again, it depends on relevancy. You know, I'd rather 5 relevant people than 1,000 screaming fans who aren't going to do anything. Real quick, let me just introduce Sean Michael. Great to see you. Beverly's here every Tuesday. She does the Women's Empowerment Over 50 show. Just a great lady up in Montreal. And Sean says, I have faced challenges to get started on writing my newsletter. And, that's why I've got training programs. Why not buy some vowels before you have to solve the puzzle? Why not get comfortable with what you're into? Why not? Because what happens is you end up exerting more time, more confusion, more fear, when all of that could have been alleviated by just finding someone who knows what they're doing, does it right, and knows how to share it with someone else to allow them to do it even better. So, Todd, I can see you're excited.
I'm always excited. So, Sean, he's right. There's always resources that are going to help you be better. So certainly consider that. And then I'm going to tie that in to what Con asked. And the answer is start now. Not everyone agrees with me, but the answer is start now. I'll make the comparison to writing a book. I can't tell you how many times I've met people over the years. So, I've been thinking about writing this book. And I'm not sure I'm ready yet. And I'm going to get there. I gotta, and they'll fill in the blank somehow. No, the answer is start. Believe me, it's a learning curve, a newsletter or a book. It's a learning curve, and it's going to be good before it's great. That is a simple fact for 99.9% of people who write anything. That's certainly been my experience. So, Sean, whatever you're fearing, I just wrote a book about facing your fears, Sean. Whatever you're fearing, let it go. It's going to be good, not great. And that is part of the game. And you're going to laugh on newsletter 50 when you look back at the first one and realize how much you've grown as a person who creates a newsletter. But you'll never get to experience what I just described to you unless you what? Start.
Well, it is like raising a garden, and there is some fun to seeing numbers go up, even if they're 10 a week or 20 a week, and getting response to it, and leveraging the newsletter for more than news, because I do a newsletter every day, which announces my show the next day. And it's a daily newsletter, it only needs to talk about the next day. Right? It's just like a menu, you're just going to put on what you're serving that day. So people put into this whole Shakespearean creative writer stuff. It's a billboard, it's a marquee.
I think that's why we're here, though, because we're both showing these different perspectives. I think you're correct. That is a valid way to do that. And then I'm the dorky guy that says, is this 700-800 word post meaningful enough for me to include in my newsletter? I use it as the billboard too on the back end, but I always have an original piece that I'm so excited to try and write and share. But my point is, there isn't one way to do this. Can you, whether it's the billboard, the pros, or something else, can you find a way to intrigue people, add some value, and make them care? That's the only question.
Well, if you do it right, you don't have to keep doing it again as far as changing it. I had a post that I got from 5,000 to 25,000 connections in 5 months. I didn't change a thing, except someone told me the only 3 things you can do on LinkedIn is inspire, educate, or entertain, or a combination. So I decided to have the post that covered all 3. So I had 5 business quotes of the day, and I just find a list of quotes, right, and copy 5 of them. I'd have the 5 tips of the day. And I just organized 50 tips and picked 5. I didn't even know what last week's tips were. And then I put the 5 connections of the day, right? And I just went through and who I wanted to promote and share, and people would come to see if they were the one that day. And I never changed it except the 555. Sometimes you got to fit something into your life, not your life into something. And what I say by that is I do everything on LinkedIn in 40 minutes a day. And that's 2 newsletters, a post, all of my outreach, because it's either templated or it's already formatted and you know what you're going to get every day. And people don't like surprises. People are always thinking, I got to freshen it up. It's old. I used it one time and 40 people out of 1 billion saw it. Now it's like people are pulling their hair out if they see it again. You let the people tell you when they don't want it. It's like a movie, right? It plays until people stop paying for tickets. and then a new show shows up. But if you got a winner, sometimes Broadway plays play forever because you hit it, right? And I think that's the thing, is people expect too much from themselves that people aren't expecting from them. You know, and they think, and to me, anything is better than nothing as long as it's somewhat tasteful, right? You know, if all you got is all you got, that's what you're serving that day. You know, they say you can't sell out of an empty wagon, right? You sell what you got and you keep selling it.
I'll be honest with you though. I know I'm being sincere here. I know I need to learn. Con, you can chime in and tell me what your take on this. But there's people, whether it's me understanding sales funnels for some part of my business, which I don't care about and I don't deal with, which I probably should, or ways to more simplify the approach to a newsletter, like you're saying. And repurpose, all of which has value. I've repurposed for sure, just not at the high extremes. I nonetheless, what makes you happy is part of it as well, is what I'm saying. I get excited about trying to think of a new idea or an idea that everyone loves that's from a different perspective. It's framed a little different. It has a new hook, something. Have you thought about it from this perspective, and share it with people? And then I do something else, Don. I don't know if you're comfortable with this, but and I'm saying this on purpose because we all have different approaches to finding success through these vehicles. One that's worked for me, and it's not for everybody, is to be very personal and vulnerable. So when I talk about learning from mistakes, you better believe I'm going to mention at least 2 of the most embarrassing mistakes I've ever made. Or when I talk about how confidence can be shaken, I'm going to talk about that time last year where I couldn't talk to anyone for 3 weeks because my confidence was just blasted and gone, and how I got out of it. So I'd like to pull back the veil, because everyone on LinkedIn, I think, errs a little too much on being very polished and professional. And I'd love to get past that and be a little more human instead.
Well, you know, to what you're saying, again, has so much value, makes so much sense, because you come up with some great stuff, just like Con does. That's enough. Just keep telling that same thing longer, faster, and more. That's the key. Is if you say, here's what I'm really into, here's what I'm passionate about, here's what I truly believe in, here's what I think the world should hear. Well, that's all the world should be hearing until you used up the vehicle. And some people get it through newsletters. Some people love polls. Some people love audio events. That's okay, right? Why not have your toe in something where you're showing up? Because if it took everything to be everything, you're wrapping old fish in diamond crusted wrapping paper.
I'm kind of in the middle on that. So, but back in the ivory tower, for example, they'll tell you that if you want to be a scholar, you got to focus hardcore on one tiny little research area and never do anything else, because that's how you get attention and gain traction and citations and all that. I didn't like that. And I published about a lot of different things. And now doing what we do, some version of what we all do, I'm still a leadership and careers, leadership and success generalist, as opposed to someone who only talks about conflict at work or some much thin slice. I don't do that. I've tried briefly years ago to try and do that because there's benefits to it. That's what all the marketing gurus say. And I can't do it. So I'm actually a intentionally, unmistakably broad person. I talk about different topics that all fit under one large umbrella, but they're different all the time. And you're not wrong. It's probably not an ideal situation. Con, how do you respond to that? Because I know we're in similar topical areas.
Yeah, and that's a big dilemma that we have right now, because we are victims of our own experiences in so many ways, Todd, because we know we can help people in a number of different categories. It's hard to shut that off and say, well, I'm not going to talk about that. But that's also part of the reason why, to Don's point, the creation and the distribution and marketing of that creation are 2 different tracks, 2 different hats. Often it's 2 different entities that do that. The creatives want to speak about a lot of these different things and are never satisfied, constantly tinkering, looking for the next big idea. That's one aspect. But to Don's point, that's part of the reason why you need either to switch hats entirely when you're dealing with the distribution of that idea, or you need to get somebody else to help you. Yeah. And that's a big part of why you see that a lot of the successful entities are rarely now doing it by themselves, because they want to be able to work in their zone of genius while bringing in partners that can help them really get it into the right hands to distribute that. I mean, the same way that, for example, an author may be very capable at writing a book, but may need a publisher or somebody to help them do some form of expertise as far as how they publish that book, how they get it into other people's hands. It's the same thing with our ideas. And to your point, you can use that newsletter or that avenue or even LinkedIn as a whole, but you have to be clear about what you're doing it. If we go back to our original thought about why we're having this conversation today about the monetization, if you will, or value creation, if you will, for those of us that are spending a lot of time on this platform or any platform for that matter, start with your why. Why are you here? Is it just for vanity? Is it just because you want to get your name out there? Are you trying to send a message? Are you trying to serve an audience? Are you trying to entertain? What is it? Everything that you do here should have an anchor, an approach, something that keeps you moving in the right direction. It keeps you anchored to that core principle of why you're here, or that North Star as far as where you want to go. Because otherwise, you seem so scattered. It's spray and pray. You're not going to get the return on that investment for your time. And honestly, you're probably going to annoy more people than you're going to do anything else. If you just want a playground to go play, that's one thing. There's plenty of people out here that do that. But there's a lot of people that want to offer value. What were the three that you mentioned, Don, earlier? It's either to educate, to inspire,
and entertain. And I think so many things I see because so many things I've done. Again, if you do 7 years every day, that's a lot of being immersed in posting and commenting. If you've done 700 videos like this, hours, and with one or at least two people, multiply that out. Yep. And what I advocate is why not just look at anything that you think has great value and get an appraiser, right? If someone left you a ton of jewelry and it all looks good to you, you would take it to an expert, let's say, lay it on a table, and they start making piles. This is really good. This is garbage, whatever it is. And that's what I'm looking at, is now working with people to say, let me see what you got. Carl Dakin, who is a great guy. He's doing the Raising Capital show. He just decided, hey, let's work together closer. So we had our first one-on-one. Optimized his profile, put a button in he didn't know he was capable of, fixed a newsletter, and why not get that second set of fresh eyes, no skin in the game type of approach, just to put you in perspective or context. But so many people are used to giving and providing. They're self-sufficient, they think. Right. Or they don't think there's people out there that could look at their stuff and tell them what they should be doing. That's really good to know, because who's fooling who at a certain point? Everybody has so much time, so much energy, and so much thought. What are you getting on the return on that? And that's probably the umbrella over how do you monetize what we're doing. And monetization is not always money, to Khan's point. Some people just want to be thought leaders. Don't care if they sell anything. They just want to get their stuff, their message out, their thoughts out. And there's a company or a community for that is waiting to hear it. But that's what I see as the bigger thing. Don't build an audience, build a community, and from your community, build a family. And that's where our collaboration group comes in, is there's 7 people doing the same thing every week, learning together, sharing together. And, when you're going against big numbers, it helps to have some numbers with you to make an impact, because how wide is this steel door we're trying to get through? And if you're whispering to your audience, and if you're here and once in a while there, well, if you're doing things to your liking, you're not into monetization, right? You're just into expressing yourself, being comfortable, and not having to do something. But if you're having to do something, you're not doing it right. If you get up and you can't wait to do it, and I think everybody needs people who are there waiting for them. Right? Because you'll do things for people and things bigger in yourself than you would for yourself if you knew there's really value to it. And the monetization always follows the value. If you make it precede it, you're going to be at a differential trying to catch up. And I think, especially with live streaming, everybody sees every second of you. To Todd's point, everybody sees every muscle that moves, and when someone says something, people could see if your eyebrows go up or if you grimace. But that's the fun of it. It's not only what created the reaction, but it's the reaction. Right? It's the music, not the words. Please, Con.
So I'm thinking about, reach and everything else. I mean, we operate in a world right now where, to some extent, having a presence on social media as a professional, as somebody who serves an audience, it's almost like, 10 years ago was having a website. You couldn't consider having a serious business if you didn't have a website or if you didn't have that. Now people are looking for ways to research you. They'll go online. They'll hit one of the search engines, Google or whatever, and they'll plug in, okay, Todd, do it. Let me see what he's got. And it's going to pop up a million different things because Todd has a lot of different avenues that he engages people. So, I mean, I'm curious because there's a certain power, Todd. You do keynotes a lot. You're a professional speaker. So you're out here in full auditoriums, reaching out 1,000, 2,000 more people, whatever it is out there. But yet you're here in this platform here with the possibility of not just the 5 people that might be responding in our audience, but the 50,000, the 5 million that potentially could see this and reach. What's your take on that as a professional, as somebody out here who's had success, who's achieved a certain limit? You look at that and you say, okay, I can do this. Do you do either or? Is it a combination? How do you get people to know, like, and trust you? Because at the end of the day, that's when they want more of you.
Well, sure. 2 thoughts, Con, immediately. One is you just constantly, whatever your platform, whether it's live or newsletter or posts or other things, great content on a regular basis. Add value, great content, regular basis. Not just the message, but also the delivery, both those that we talked about. Then I've struggled with this because I'm one of those people who begrudgingly admits LinkedIn is amazing. Other socials have potentially real interesting value for business people, but I don't like them. And I'd rather use my time this way instead of doing something on Instagram or whatever. So what I say to people, and this is not what the marketing gurus would tell you, I know, but I'm going to answer your question, is that you should sample all of them and the new ones that come around when they come around and find out which ones make sense to you, feel comfortable to you, maybe have people on them that are relevant to you and see what fits. You can use tools, you all know this, that let you post once and then it posts to all these different socials. You can do that approach if you want to. I've tried that. I didn't find it very fulfilling knowing I just posted the same message onto 10 platforms. So what I've ended up doing is focusing hardcore on the one that matters most to me, which is LinkedIn, and it's created some really good success there. But that's not the approach most people take. Most people believe you're supposed to use those apps, Hootsuite and all those types of apps that will allow you to post to multiple places automatically when you make one post. And I value that. I think it's important. I'm not doing it. They say don't put all your eggs in one basket. I have put all my eggs in the LinkedIn basket. And for me, it's going well because when you do that, you get deeply enmeshed. And it's just my experience. I'm not preaching here, just my experience. When you hang out a lot on one, you learn it so much better. You understand what's going on so much better. You know the language and the tone that dominates there, thus how to reciprocate in a way that might be listened to. So for what it's worth, look broadly, sample broadly, learn what else is going on, but then you got to find the one or two that really does work best for you. That's been my approach.
And what determines that? Is it your comfort level or is it where your audience lives?
Well, it's definitely the audience because what I do, I talk about life, but mostly I talk about success in business, success as on the people side of the equation. So teams, leadership, and so on. And there's only one platform where almost everyone there is interested in those topics, and that's LinkedIn. So it was an obvious one for me.
Right.
Well,
no, I would agree with you there. Yeah.
With that said, again, no matter what someone's success or history, everybody wakes up tomorrow to a new day.
Yep.
And the question is, what day and what future day are you trying to build today? Some of it is a continuation of yesterday and everything before that. And the key is what makes you happy. Because we can talk about monetization and efficiency and all this other stuff. but how do you mix quality of life into it? How do you mix balance? You know, I find I have to slow down a lot of times, not speed up, to enjoy the ride a little bit better, to take a little time to review and reflect, refresh. I mean, if we're doing something on a professional level, on a serious level, on a competitive level, you know, how ready are we to go every day? And what is the challenge we put in front of us to make us excited to play one more day? Because what you're good at is not always what you like. I mean, if you look at all these old rock groups, right? They're putting out all this new music and everybody just wants to hear what they did in the 70s. And, you know, it must be nauseating at a certain point, you know, to have grown, to have changed. And people keep bringing up when you were popular or when something was that wasn't. So, you know, and then there's other artists who are changing all the time, trying new venues and new genres and challenging themselves to continue to evolve. And not only that, get in front of the crowd. And, you know, nobody really wants to hear what you think they should do. They want to see what you've done, how you've done it, and then make sense if they want to do it. But, you know, the key thing is at a certain level, that's the level you want to continue to play at. Like Todd says, he's kind of exclusive LinkedIn. At a certain point, I said, well, the three things that are now the integral pieces of the puzzle is a show like this with this type of format, with this type of pairing of guests. Second thing is the collaboration group, which is here we get to talk, there we get to do. And the third thing is personalization, where someone says, okay, listen, I'm getting a lot from the show, I'm getting a lot from the group, but I got a project, I got a situation, or, you know, I need help. And, you know, by being able to do it as it goes, then people can trust themselves to feel how it goes, but also be responsible for making it go.
Yeah.
You know, not just getting in the back seat, but sharing the wheel every so often. So I think those are things that people have to question themselves. Here's a new person I haven't seen, love to recognize. Peter says, great conversation about the fact that social media presence is simply not optional today. Your lack of presence, actually a strong statement in itself. Great to see my friend Khan here. Cheers. Well, thank you for being here. And that's another thing. When you combine three people, three different audiences can converge. And what I've noticed, which was always fascinating, is I could be in the same industry with the same circle and, you know, same 20,000 connections or whatever, only 15% ever overlap, right? So if you pick up three 20s, you're actually picking up two 30s, right? By the 15 and 15, or how the numbers shake out. And that's another way of getting more done in less time and doing it with people that, hey, I'm learning here. I'm growing here.
Yeah. And you know, I want to say thank you to my friend Peter, because he is an amazing creator in his own right. He's been able to establish himself with his own show, Red TV. He's up in Canada. He's doing amazing things up there, and he has an amazing story of his own to share. Not to mention that every time he brings a guest on, he actually does a wonderful job, an amazing job of really showcasing that guest. So he knows what work goes into these shows to produce that and the value that these things can bring, because he has created his own audience. And to have him here is a great honor and a great opportunity for us to have that. And it also shows his desire to add value, to share, to come from a place of abundance, like many of us here. I know we're kind of getting towards the tail end, so I also want to acknowledge one more thing. Even though we're three guys on this panel here, it is International Women's Day today.
Hey.
So Beverly, thank you for representing the group out here right now and having at least somebody out here that we can celebrate and have that, because our lives would not be where they are without the strong women in them, and we need to celebrate them more often and acknowledge them. So yes, to that perspective, let's make sure that with whatever platform we do have, we give props to those people that have earned it, whether it's our friends and peers out there or the women or whoever else we need to celebrate for a particular thing, because sometimes it's important to remember and add value to them.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but most of the people I'm close to on LinkedIn are women. They seem to be more comfortable and capable. And maybe there's some studies out there, I don't know, on social than at least on LinkedIn than men are. So I couldn't possibly agree more. I did, before I forget, Don, wanted to say both of you have brought this up in different ways. Don said, what makes you happy? And then earlier Con said, why are you here when you're figuring out what to post? I just wanted to tell anyone that might listen to this, you need to think about that. There's what the experts are going to tell you to do in terms of volume, quality, rich different channels you can use, and there's the ideals that might push you to be better overall, more effective, efficient overall using a platform like LinkedIn. Then there's what you're comfortable with and what makes you happy and the type of thing you want to share and the frequency with which you want to share. I do remember 10 years ago, really thinking I have to be a pro on social media and stressing myself out, trying to learn how to optimize what I was doing in 50 different ways to get an extra incremental follower or two. And it wasn't making me happy. So as much as we should listen to people like Don and others about how we use these tools even better, it's also wonderful to hear you say, hey man, what makes you happy? Because there's an ideal way to use these tools, and then there's the way that you're going to learn to maximize how you feel about using these tools. You don't have to be the world's greatest. You just gotta be open-minded and thoughtful about how you do it, and you'll find your own way.
Well, I think those are great comments, and it brings to mind that I'm trying to be the example of doing things in a more informal, comfortable way and being happy with it, because if you're going to do it over the long haul, 700 whatever and all these other things, it's got to be 1, 2, 3. You never question, well, do I want to brush my teeth today? Well, the way I do it, it doesn't take any time at all, and you kind of get it to the point where you build some room in. But the other thing about anything you do, at least what I do, is who you're doing it with. I couldn't do this show by myself. I tried. I'm good for about 7 minutes by myself in a vacuum, and then I bail, right? It's how long can you hold your breath, because it's getting more uncomfortable with time. But if you're with great people, I mean, where am I going to go from here to my next conversation? It's not going to be as significant as this. And, I know I've said things, and Con has said things, and Todd has said things we never thought we would say today. But it was in reaction to what someone else said. Someone else brought something up. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that brings something to my mind. And that's more organic. That's more natural than sitting in a room and forcing something. I need to create this. You don't have to do anything. This is your pleasure. This is your hobby. Right? This is your education. Until you put it like, hey, I'm giving away a lot and I'm not getting anything fast enough. Well, you got to have a talk with yourself, because that's where the game is what were your expectations and why? Why did you think after 30 days you'd be a shooting star here when other people have taken years? And time is not on anybody's side if there's not progress attached to it and hope. Because I think once you believe the check's in the mail, you could start spending it in your mind, right? You don't have to have it. You don't even have to have it in the bank. But once you know it's coming and you believe that, and I think to Todd's earlier point, it's passion, it's excitement, it's energy, because I am so sure of what I'm saying, because I'm doing it and it's working and it keeps working. And I see so many people who aren't doing it, putting more time, more trouble, doing some weird stuff. That's what usually happens when you can't make it fit like a round peg in a square hole. You take the hammer out and you start pounding it, right? And you force it to fit, but that's not scalable. It's not duplicatable. And the other thing is, if you're into legacy, you're into the ripple effect, right? There's going to be things that are seen that we will never know who watched it from this show. There's going to be people that benefit. And, how do you want to be remembered? And not when you're gone, but now, right? And what are you doing to get your word out? If you're passionate, if you have nothing to say and you don't want to say it, then that's exactly what you should say, because there's a zillion. Go to the zoo, go to a museum, there's a million things. You don't have to force yourself here, but you can unforce yourself. And when everything doesn't matter. It's the easiest game to play, right? So you just do what you feel. And after a while, your feelings will show. And here's one last thing. I trust myself to learn from everything I do and be open to learning about everything I'm not doing from anybody who's doing it. And eventually you collect a piece of this, a piece of that, and pretty soon it weighs in this favor. You try that. But by having community, having people like on this panel who will just kind of give it a little refinement, ask another question, dig a little deeper. And it's like, yeah. And you want to get to that aha, yeah moment, because that'll probably give you 30 days of horsepower before you got to figure out how to get more fuel the next 30 days. But that's all you need. So we're almost at the end. It's been a wonderful show. I knew it would be, only because we've had the show before, but I also know who I'm with. And when you know who is in the band with you, and you know how strong they are as soloists, it's a treat to come together as a trio and make something that wouldn't have happened without any effort, right? If I would have said, hey, we're going to have these questions, we're going to have this, think about it before you get here, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, whatever it is. And collectively, everybody knows that. And I think that's what makes live refreshing and interesting. So last words to the audience, Todd, before we sign off.
Yeah, so there's nothing truly mysterious about LinkedIn. We know that it's powerful. You do have to play the long game and be a regular contributor. Try and be honest, authentic, and add some value. And long term, that will come back to you. That's a real summary for me.
Well, great. So glad to have your input today. Con?
Yeah, I would echo those same sentiments, but I would just emphasize that, the tool is the tool is the tool. You cannot tighten a screw with a paintbrush. Pick the right tool for what job you want to do. In this case, if you want to reach a business audience, a more professional audience, put yourself in that situation. That trifecta, your message, and your audience need to match up to the platform. And here on LinkedIn, thankfully, I think we've all found a home where we can add some inspiration, add some education, and add value to our audience, and hopefully win their attention, because that's a big part of what this is all about, and add value to their day.
Yeah, I think that really capsulizes it in a great way, if capsulization is really a word. And
it is now.
Don
said
it. What it says. You can afford to do things and say that don't matter to anything but what you were thinking or saying at the time. And I think the best position you could be is in the now. If you're purely in the now and you're not letting the past catch up with you, you're not letting the future concern you, why not feel more than happiness? Why not get the bliss? Why not get to joy, right? What's wrong with that? And I think so many people have self-limiting beliefs, or they keep themselves out of situations they should be in. And that's where community, that's where somebody's fresh eyes might come in. You're only one idea away, one action away from maybe busting this thing wide open, right? And your whole future and everybody's future around you could change. And what's the risk? You can always do yesterday, tomorrow again. Why not take the day and do something that's challenging, right? And be the proactive challenger out there. And one last thing is, in most cases, the reason you're not getting enough is you haven't become good enough, and I think you have to learn, you have to grow, you have to be capable of success, right? And I think that's the learning curve one needs to compress. So don't take it personal, because whatever you're doing is more than probably 1 billion people here are doing. Just watching today, just being curious, just knowing that, hey, maybe I can get an answer or two. But also, the stage is not that far from where you are, right? And even Peter, if it's a good friend of Con, it's a good friend of mine. I'd be happy to have Peter and Con on a show if Peter wanted to, because why not? If you can comment, you can broadcast. So with that said, right on time. Thank you all so much. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I certainly was honored and privileged again to be with Con and Todd, and look forward to more shows like this. So Have a great weekend. Come back on Monday. It's going to be an interesting show. We've got Harvey Tuck, and then we've got Penny, who is, her forte is manuals, writing manuals for organizations and keeping everything together. And she's got a book out about it. So come back Monday. Thank you again.